Uh, okay, I had some questions about the assignment. Okay, this is page 20. Okay, the pages that come after it are 20, A, B, C, D, and E. Okay. So you'll be reading those pages of the Magna Carta Petition Right and English Bill of Rights, and this filling out this chart on page 20. Okay, what rights you find in those documents. What we're looking at, guys, is the English tradition on our system. Okay, so what they had throughout their history. I mean, Magna Carta goes back to 1215, right? So, I mean, that's when they first limited the power of the king. Okay, so we're going to look at that over time because you guys know the first people to inhabit the colonies were English. So they took those traditions with them across the Atlantic. Okay, and this is going to impact how they view the world, how they view government. And then we get into the colonial era, which we're going to do today, and look at the different colonies and the structures of governments. And this, from here on out, we're building our essay for the test. Okay, everything that we stopped with yesterday was the objective portion of the test. Okay, your terms, your definitions, different forms of government, different economic systems, all that stuff we talked about. Okay, so that's what we're looking at. Okay, now I've been reading through a lot of responses to the debate. Okay, and they, to be quite honest, a lot of them are awesome. I really enjoy reading your comments. Some of you guys are brutally honest, which I love, and it's good to see your input. As some of you are more politically aware than others. I mean, that's just, depends on your family and how you feel about things. Some people hate politics, and but I do find reading those very interesting. And most of the opinions were pretty close in nature. I mean, obviously it was awful to watch. I mean, it was crazy. And the president didn't behave very presidential. And that was, I think, a plan on his part to frustrate Vice President Biden and get him off his game. And I think to some extent that worked. Trump obviously came off as more of the alpha male in the room. The moderator had a hard time controlling it. And at some points, a lot of people observed that it felt like Trump was debating the moderator as well, kind of forcing Trump to, answer the question where I think only on one occasion he pressed Biden to answer a question. So you saw a lot of those types of comments. Guys, this is a political situation where you are trying to win votes. And as I talked about yesterday, and I don't know if I recorded this part, talked about just how demographically, when we talk about groups of voters based on, socioeconomic, blue collar versus white collar, white versus black versus Hispanic and Asian and so forth, voting blocks, okay? And I got to tell you guys, I've been doing this for a long time, and those demographics are changing as we speak, okay? Like blue-collar voting Democrats are voting for Trump, okay? We're starting to see more African Americans support Trump than have supported any Republican in decades, okay? However, the Republican candidate Trump is losing white women, okay, suburban women, okay, and so Trump is appealing his style, his message of law and order is trying to appeal to these groups and blue collar Americans, okay, so and Biden is trying obviously to distance himself from the far left in his party. He tried to do that some, the Green New Deal, Medicare for all. And Trump's trying to tie him to those groups, right? So I thought Biden did a pretty good job of, holding his own in the debate. When he refused to answer the question about packing the court, I saw some comments on that by a lot of students. That bothers people when you won't answer a question or say, I'm not going to answer that question. Why? So I don't know if there was a winner. Yeah.
So they have the choice not to answer.
Yeah, I mean, I guess.
But it was right there.
Yeah, it just affects, they have the right to say whatever they want or not say whatever they want, And so there's discussion about the second debate and whether they're going to have like mute buttons on the microphones. Okay, I don't think I agree with that. I think people need to be able to, and that's the thing, the way this worked out, they should allow for back and forth, to be able to respond to what the other person says. Should they be more respectful of each other? Absolutely. That was horrible. My wife and I were just like, oh my gosh. I couldn't take my eyes off it because it was just like so intense. But at the same time, when it was over, it was like, it was awful.
I was talking to my, I went in for a haircut yesterday, and I was talking to my stylist, Crystal, about it, and she came up with a really good idea. This is, I don't know, but like having it, the problem I found with the debate is that they jump from topics so quickly.
Right.
Like, if you read the opinions of each party, it's very base level, superficial stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's all that they get to express on the platform. It doesn't go any deeper than that. So it feels like the debate is just people yelling out their opinions, of which we already know.
Right.
So I feel like having it like kind of as a podcast, almost like like the Joe Rogan debates.
Right.
That sort of format where it's just kind of open without questions.
Yeah.
Would be a lot more.
I agree.
Beneficial.
People always refer to the Lincoln Douglas debates, which lasted for days, right? And I definitely agree with that. To explain your policies and to be critical of the others as well. I think that's, and you gotta understand where Trump's coming from, in a sense that if most of the media doesn't like him, how does he get his message out? And this is an opportunity for him to get his message out, and without being, having it analyzed in front of the American people by the media, so he can go directly. So he's got a lot he wants to say, and I think 90 minutes is too short, and they open it up, but the two campaigns need to get together and say, look, okay, we need to be more respectful and let people finish their statements, and then give it back to the other guy, let them respond. But the moderator, he lost all control. And I don't know how much of that is his fault. But yeah, so, woo!
The word I would best use to describe it would be shallow and superficial. Like, I didn't get anything.
Childish?
Yeah.
It's a good term. I apologize to Lily for making her watch it. I'm sorry I made you watch that. And I got a text from your mom saying, you owe me 90 minutes of my life back. Okay. And then everybody heard the news this morning about the president and the first lady. They both tested positive.
Oh,
yeah. So one of their top aides, somebody that's with them all the time, tested positive yesterday. And so they were tested, and I think President Trump tweeted out early this morning that now, from what I understand, neither one of them are showing any symptoms at this point. They're both asymptomatic. Gosh, it's really sad to go on Facebook and Twitter this morning and just see how nasty people can be. And that goes on both sides. Like when Ruth Bader Ginsburg died, there were some people that were being, very disrespectful and nasty, and you know, it goes both ways. But yeah, social media, guys, is Twitter is a whole another level of disgusting the way people act, behave. And guys, this is something that I'm actually going to be Monday night. I have to present for my 21st Century Learner class. Get my graduate degree in teaching and learning, and so my topic of discussion, something I'm trying to implement in my class, is about. Well, I'll just read it to you. I think I've read this on but I'm currently working on it. Teacher seeks to foster respectful communication among all members of the learning community. Okay, so that's what I really would like to have in here is, if we have, Biden lovers and Trump lovers and Democrats and Republicans, that we can all listen to each other and not have fear of repercussions from me or each other, right? So I hope that as we go through this semester, we get comfortable expressing our opinions on social issues or political views and stuff like that, and where everybody feels like they're safe to do so. We're a small class, way we're doing this, so things, people, you stand out when you speak up, and I just don't want anybody to have fear over that, and I can model that. One way I can model that is to make fun of both parties and both candidates, right? And, make it feel acceptable to do so. Okay, it's fine with me. Okay, 2016 was probably the hardest year of teaching I ever had, because how could I defend some of the things President Trump was saying or candidate Trump was saying, and how could I defend Hillary Clinton and some of the things she has done? I can't. You can't defend all these things. And these politicians are human beings. They're not perfect. We're going to be talking about the founding fathers, and these guys were way smarter than the two men we saw in the debate. I mean, it's not even close as far as, just intelligence, how well read they are, and how well they know history and logic. And it's a sad commentary. The leadership we have in this country in both parties is abhorrent. I mean, there are some really quality members of Congress, and then there are some that are just, you think to yourself, how do these people get elected, And I think part of the reason why they get elected is because good people, smart people, don't want to put themselves through this process. Okay, you saw Trump, going after Biden's son. You saw Biden going after Trump's, taxes and his personal life. And, it's an open book, and people don't want to put themselves through that. But these founding fathers that we talk about, they were human too. We got any Hamilton fans in here? People, that watch, Hamilton was certainly a flawed character, wasn't he? They all were. So we have to remember that about each other, that we're all human beings. Okay? Democrats are people too. Republicans are people too. And we need to be respectful of each other if we can. You know what I mean? So I'm working on 5 to 10 minute presentation on that right now. Might try it out on Monday morning on my second hour. So we'll see how it goes. All right. So we're going to get into, so when you guys talk about headers for the notes, okay, we had the English traditions and impact on our government. Okay, I don't know if you watched yesterday and did that. And that's what we're looking at with the Magna Carta Petition Right and English Bill Rights. We're going to move forward and then come back to that next week. Okay. So the next thing we're going to look at is how the growth of the colonies impacted our government. see that, Ashley?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we're gonna start with, and I don't know if you guys remember this from history your junior year, okay? There were 3 types of colonies. We had 13, right? 13 colonies. And you remember any of the 3 types?
They were crown colonies.
Okay, we'll call these royal, and people use different names. Okay, so let's start with that, and then we'll do the other 2. Yeah.
One called a joint stock.
Yeah, like the joint stock, and we're gonna call those proprietary. Okay, and then the last one, independent colonies. Okay, so we'll start with royal. Okay, originally there were only 3 royal colonies. Okay, New York, New Jersey, and Virginia. Okay, now these came with royal charters. Okay, so the king set up a colony, and the king got to appoint the governor. Okay, so the king appoints the governor. Okay, who is the head of the colony. Now, do you guys remember the first permanent settlement? Jamestown. So Jamestown, 16. Oh, 07. Okay. Remember Captain John Smith? Captain John Smith and Pocahontas, right? Okay. This is, I mean, you also have things like in 1620, okay, 1620, we get what? What's that settlement? Plymouth Rock. Have you guys been there? They actually have a rock. It says 1620 on it. I don't think it's an original.
Yeah, I heard it was like a tiny little stone.
Yeah, it's about this big. Yeah, something. Yeah. Okay. Now these were the Pilgrims, right? The Puritans, the Pilgrims showed up here. Okay. Now you notice this is Massachusetts. Okay. So that's not a royal colony. Okay. But Jamestown turned it into a royal colony. Okay. And Captain John Smith famously said, I mean, they tried, essentially, I think they tried communism, where they all, shared everything and so forth, but then some people got lazy. And John Smith didn't like that. And so he made the simple statement, if you don't work, you don't eat. Okay. All right, so these were rough times for these settlers, obviously, right? They went through a lot. Now this is the start of an era. Okay, this is the start of an era, 1607. Okay, so in a royal colony, and these are all going to develop over time as more settlers come, things change, and so forth. Okay, so later on, there's going to be more royal colonies later. Okay, so when they become rebellious in the 1760s and 1770s, we will add some new ones to this, okay, with rebellion. New Hampshire will be made a royal colony. And this means basically the king is asserting control, okay? Massachusetts will become a royal colony. North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia will all become royal colonies.
Does it become royal when just Jamestown rebels?
No, later on, when rebellion. When they start to rebel against the British, okay? So, in these original royal colonies, okay, king not only appointed the government, but the king appoints the legislature. Okay? Now, this was a bicameral legislature. Okay? We know what that means, right? Okay? So the king appointed the upper and then the lower house. Interestingly, guys, even in the royal colonies were made up of white male POs. What are POs? White male property owners. Okay. And guess who was in charge of the money? The white male property owners. Okay. So even though the king appoints all of this, right? Who's in charge of the money? The people. Okay. Or at least the wealthy white male property owners. Okay. They were in charge of the purse. Okay. So the rest of the government needs to respect their views because they control the money. Okay. So that's under a royal. So in a sense, you could say that there's some self-governance going on within these royal colonies. Okay. Now, the king is obviously in charge. Now, the king is how far away? The king is across the ocean. How long does it take in the 1640s, 50s to get across the Atlantic in a ship? Months. Okay. So in order for a message to get from Virginia to England, and then that message to come back, I mean, you could be looking at 3 or 4 months. You can't micromanage the colonies. You just can't. Okay. So the king has to allow, his governors to rule, but the governors, they have to listen to these powerful people in their colony. Okay. So that's a basic breakdown of the system. Okay. Now, the lower house controlling the purse, this is a tradition that we keep today. So yesterday, guys, in the House of Representatives, they passed a $2.2 trillion package for COVID relief. Okay. Now, Nancy Pelosi's the Speaker of the House. She's the most powerful person in the House of Representatives, in the lower house. Okay. And she's been communicating with the Secretary of Treasury, okay, Treasury Mnuchin, okay, and they've been working this out. The White House has countered with a $1.6 trillion deal, okay, so the Senate now will have their say. It will change, okay, and that, obviously the Senate's controlled by the Republicans, and the House the Democrats. Maybe they will work out a compromise, okay? And if they don't, we're going to start seeing a lot of layoffs, especially in things like the airline industry, okay? United Airlines is ready to furlough or lay off 32,000 employees. The only way United Airlines has been paying those 32,000 employees is from government bailouts, okay? They're not flying near as many flights as they used to. Have any of you guys flown since the, yeah, I have too. I did a one-way flight back from Denver. Okay. Did you fly to Denver? Tickets are cheap. Where'd you fly?
California.
Okay. Was the flight full? Even when they're flying, a lot of times there's empty seats, cheap tickets. It's a great time to fly. Okay. All right. Second time. Okay. We're going to talk about proprietary. The next debate is scheduled for October 15th, which Trump will be done with quarantine. I hope they don't cancel them. I really don't. As bad as it was to watch, we need to see this. We've got to see it. Okay, proprietary. Now, any of you guys take wagers for like, or anybody else for like business principles or anything like that? No? Okay. Have you heard of a proprietorship? It's like a business. Okay. A proprietor is somebody that owns a business. Okay. And when you start your own business, you got to decide what kind of business you're going to set up. Okay. You could have a proprietorship where you are the sole owner. You own the whole company yourself. Okay. I don't recommend that. I recommend an S corporation, which you can be the sole owner of, but the corporation has the liability. If you're the proprietor, all the liability is on you. If you set up a corporation, the liability is on the corporation. Does that make sense? So like if you lose the business or there's a lawsuit against the business, they sue the business. They don't sue you. Does that make sense? Because you don't want to lose your house and your property, your own possessions by being sued. Okay, if you're the proprietor. So most people set up S corporations. Okay, in case you're thinking about it. Okay, you got a lawn mowing business or something like that, painting houses, set up a corporation. Okay, all right. So proprietary are set up as businesses. Okay, and so the king will give these individuals the right to start a colony. That's why we know some of the names of these proprietors, like William Penn. What colony? Pennsylvania. Okay. So Pennsylvania. Lord Baltimore. Maryland. Okay. Others would include North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. Now, if you remember a little bit from last year, I know you studied this. Georgia was known as what type of colony? Well, yes, but they also sent people there.
Oh, that was like when they couldn't pay off their taxes.
Or criminals?
Yeah.
The penal colony. Okay. Georgia's known for that. And the proprietor here was a guy named Oglethorpe. Okay. James Oglethorpe was the proprietor of Georgia. Now, just to kind of tip you off a little bit. Father Eric Weldon read a book. Now, you guys have all seen, I know I'm all over the place. You've seen the movie National Treasure, right? And you guys are aware there was one Catholic that signed the Declaration of Independence. Okay, his name was Charles Carroll. Okay, the Carroll family is Irish. All right, and they are the wealthiest family in Ireland. Okay, and so the patriarch of the family, I forget what his first name was. It might have been Charles too. His son, Charles Carroll, went to Oxford in England. Okay, and he also went to. He was educated in Paris as well. Okay, you got to remember back in. Okay, you got the Anglican Church, English is Protestant, right? And France is Catholic. Okay, two different worldviews, and so his son was educated in both. Okay, then they came to Maryland. All right, and was one of the most wealthiest families in the colonies. This Catholic family, the Carrolls. Okay, and because of his education in both sides, he was somebody, and how smart he was somebody that was welcomed in to the legislature, somebody that was welcomed into the debates and so forth, okay? And his wealth helped as well, okay? So it's a really interesting story when you talk about these penal colonies or these colonies where they sent kind of the rabble of their society to get them out of Europe and send them over to the States or to the colonies. Georgia certainly was one, but Maryland was as well. And the treatment of Catholics is really interesting to study here, okay? Early on, Catholics were treated okay. I mean, they were allowed to build, Catholic churches and so forth, and but that changed over time, okay? And so over time, they were stripped of some of their rights and so forth. And certainly, guys, the Irish that were sent over here, many of them came over as indentured servants, okay? And like slaves, they were treated, okay, very poorly, these indentured servants. And so Maryland had a very large population of Irish indentured servants, okay, that were treated pretty poorly, all right? So all of these three, or these four, really had a lot of these criminal element and then some Irish indentured as well, okay? So because it's really interesting to study that. I read the book called American Cicero, which is about the Carroll family. Really good stuff. Okay, so the proprietor is given the land by the king to manage and run as a business, yes? Okay, so the proprietor is the governor. The businessman is the governor. So in a sense, the king is appointing the governor, yes? However, in order for them to run a successful colony, they're really going to rely on those property owners there, okay? So the governor, generally in these colonies, they set up a 3-branch government. Okay, obviously the governor is the executive, okay? And they had checks and balances. Now, the judicial branch in these colonies were appointed by the king. The legislature was made up of, again, white male property owners that control the purse. Okay? In fact, the legislature controlled the governor's salary. Okay? So if things were operating well and these white male property owners were doing well, they could reward the governor. Okay, so if you're a business, I mean, the whole thing is a business, but if you're like where the rubber meets the road, you own these farms and plantations and so forth, you control the governor's salary, the governor's got to listen to you. Yeah, he's got to listen to people. Okay. Now, guys, don't get me wrong here. This is a situation where there are people that are wealthy and aristocratic, okay, and then there are people that some like kind of middle class and then a lot of lower class, okay, and obviously slavery is going to be an issue, is going to be involved with all this, as indentured servants, people having to work off their debt and so forth, okay, but the people have a say, okay, at least some people. All right, and then the third type of colony is the independent colony. These would include, as you can imagine, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and New Hampshire. Legislature, generally referred to as the Assembly at the time, was and occupied by white male property owners. Okay? Now, as the colonies grow and expand, okay, you have people being born in the New World. First generation Americans. Okay? Obviously, the first people to come here came from England, and then they started having families here. So you had people that were truly Americans. Okay? They didn't have British citizenship. And in some of the colonies, if you were not British, you were seen as second class. Okay? And so here, these people basically get to set up their own system of government. And nobody's messing with them. Okay? These states are going to be the seeds of rebellion. And I know you guys know about Massachusetts because that's the hot spot, right? For the rebellion. Okay. You guys know what New Hampshire state motto is? You know what ours is, right? Kansas. Which means?
To the stars.
Yeah, to the stars with difficulty. Okay. Coach Lawbone would be proud. Okay. New Hampshire, I think, has the best one. Live free or die. Okay, so you can see the attitudes here. We're talking almost 150 years of self-governance here in these colonies. Okay, so what you're looking at is what is generally referred to between 1607 and 1760 is the era of salutary neglect. Got that, Ash? Okay. The era of salutary neglect between 1607 and 1760, where basically the colonies were allowed to run themselves without much royal interference. Okay. Now, changes are happening back in England during this time as well. As you will find, the Petition of Right is 1628, and the Glorious Revolution and the English Bill of Rights is 1688. Okay, so as people are still immigrating here from England, okay, they're learning of new rights and new limits on government back home. Okay, and the people that live here are, yeah, they somewhat pay attention to what's going back in the old world. Okay, and so they know what rights are being, published, written down by man to restrict government's power over them individually. Okay? Because that's what you guys are going to be reading about this weekend, is getting that all figured out. What a new social contract with the English Bill of Rights and the Petition of Right. Okay? And so this idea of self-governance and self-rule is embedded in these people, especially in these colonies. And when the British start cracking down, it's like in this classroom, guys. If you came in here the first week and I had no rules, you guys could do whatever you want. And then all of a sudden by November, I'm like, guys, we're going to have to put in some rules here. You guys are not going to respond well to that. Okay? And you have generations and generations of Americans now that have learned to live free. Okay? And they are not going to respond well. Okay? So the next thing we kind of jump into, guys, is a review of revolutionary history. Okay? Of how this all goes down. Time we got 125, which we don't have time to get into, but let's do the header. So you guys are ready at home. Now, the next session, the next two sessions, because you're turning in the page 20, you're just going to show it to me. I'm going to look at your check marks when you come in on Wednesday, not Tuesday. Tuesday's ACT, okay? So on Wednesday, I'm going to look at your chart, okay? And we'll discuss it. So I'm going to take 2 days on that. I'm going to do the same thing, and I won't record it. Or should I? Should I record it and have you guys just watch the discussion of the other class? Or should we do it live? I'm sorry? Okay, that would put us at Thursday and Friday, finishing the revolution, going through the revolution. Okay, I'll have one class hour to do that. Okay, that will put us to the end. Okay, so that means over next weekend, the review sheet's already up. You guys will study. So next Monday next, not this Monday, the following week, do the objective test, Monday and Tuesday, do the essay, Thursday, Friday. A week of testing. Okay. Good? Let's see, wait a second. So actually, next Thursday and Friday, I will finish this, and I'll have time to wrap up anything else in your session on Friday and talk about the test. So I have 2 days next week to teach. 2 days, we'll do the discussion on the homework, okay? And then I have 2 days to teach. The American Revolution, which you won't be here for, you'll watch it. And then I'll finish it and talk about the test with you. Okay? And then Monday, Tuesday. Objective, Thursday, Friday, the following week, essay. And I may need to pare down the essay a little bit. Because very rarely does anybody finish it in 45 minutes. And because of our schedule, I can't cut in other people's. Usually I send an email and say, hey, I'm going to have a few government students late today. So I'll probably pare that down a little bit. Okay. But I'll let you know. Good?